Okay, Adult Best Friends is this new movie that appeared on HBO, but I'm told it did have a theatrical run of some type, so a lot of the stuff that appears that I'm talking about in my rants really had a theatrical run or some sort of release before they finally end up on our streaming services that we know and love. In the case, it ended up on HBOMax or Max or whatever the heck they rebranded it to, but here's the thing about this film. I didn't really like this film. I'm going to just have to say it. But I will have to say that perhaps I'm not the audience for this film. And by audience, I mean like, this is a story about two ladies who have a relationship that I kind of understand, but I think and I don't know if I'm going to get controversial on this, but I think the dynamics between males and females as far as how they do their relationships in their respective genders is very different. So I get the feeling like, were you to swap this out with two male best friends, I think you would have an entirely different film. But I do like the setup of this film because I think this film does address something that I don't really see in a lot of films. Because a lot of films, they really like to show like, okay, a character's about to get married, and then they show kind of the trials that are involved in that. And yeah, there are some trials there, and you can make, and they have made a lot of romances about this thing. Adult Best Friends, I don't really feel is a romance. It's really trying to be a comedy, but here's the thing. Maybe it's not trying to be a comedy, okay? Maybe that's the thing there. And if it's not trying to be anything and it's trying to do its own thing, of course I applaud it. So, yeah, because I like any film that's not trying to be in its own particular genre, where it doesn't really play by those genre rules and it goes out of its way to do different things. Those are films that I keep trying to watch, even though they're very hard to figure out a lot of things. And there's two films I'm going to talk about this week as far as like in my rants. I think A Simple Favor and Another Simple Favor would be an example of this, where it's like it doesn't really fit in any particular genre, but I think that's actually working for it. But for Adult Best Friends, I mean, if it is a comedy, I don't recall laughing once at any of the jokes. Okay? I'm going to say that. If it's not meant to be a comedy, then that's fine. And I think the way we do comedy is, well, I wouldn't have to say it's a dying art, but I would have to say most of the comedies that we are watching now end up being on streaming services. I don't think we've had a major comedy be released in the theaters for quite a while. I think the only one that I think I've seen was that one with Jennifer something. Why is it I can't remember her name? I think it was called like No Hard Feelings or something like that. That one I actually did see, and I thought, okay, this is actually really funny, and it reminds me of the type of comedies that we used to make, but they don't really make those anymore, do they? And unless it's like a streaming service, they kind of have like this. And now we have comedy series, and the situation comedy is still actually going, but I think a lot of it, we are straying away from the whole studio audience type of thing, and that whole kind of thing that I think The Big Bang Theory might have been the final nail in the coffin as far as that comedy is concerned. I think we want comedies that are a bit more high comedy and a bit more intelligent, and we don't want slapstick. So yeah, Adult Best Friends, and I haven't even talked about the plot of this, is about that. Essentially, two girls, two young ladies who grew up together. We actually see in flashback where they met for the first time, which I kind of really liked. I actually thought, okay, that's kind of good. Yeah, this film actually had a pretty good beginning with the flashback scenes. I mean, there are a lot of films that start out like this, where they show the character as a youth, and a lot of times that doesn't really add much to the. I mean, it's nothing that I couldn't have already figured out if just by watching the film. But I do like the fact that it's there. It shows that they have a sweet relationship, and it shows them kind of growing up and doing stuff. And here's the thing: one of the characters is about to get married. And here's another thing. These two are going to go away for a little friends trip, and at which point in time, that one character is going to say to the other character, "Oh, by the way, I'm getting married." And I think it's rather interesting that this one character doesn't really want to say this. And essentially, I believe what's kind of happening is essentially third wheel syndrome, or fourth wheel, fifth wheel, it's whatever that thing is. Where essentially, like, I mean, this one character is getting married. I mean, we we meet the fiance, and the fiance is a really nice guy. He's doing the best he can with what he's doing. He's not shown as being like, this isn't one of those movies where a character's about to get married, but we don't like the person that they're marrying, and and it's not shown early on that this character is not a good person and she shouldn't get married to them, and that's not really where the film is going. This is a character who realizes that this other character has a good relationship, has a good friendship with him, and he doesn't really want to be in the way. And I think it's kind of interesting the way the conversation goes when the three of them are in the same room together. It's very obvious that one best friend doesn't like the fiance, so then feels like it's an intrusion on their relationship. Now, I think all of us have had a relationship that's kind of like this, even if we're not married or anything like that. I think that is something that does arise in this type of thing. And I really think that I really appreciate the film for really trying to address this. Now, most of the film is these two going on this little girls' trip together, and they end up staying at this Airbnb, which is ran by this one guy who's kind of I don't even really know how to describe this guy, but it's kind of a creepy scene there. And I didn't really know what to make of this scene and why they even had it in the movie, and it isn't really funny, and it feels kind of like, why is this even there? And maybe this is based on a real event they had. And while they're on this trip, they happen to go in this bar, and they discover that this one guy is having a bachelor party. And so the groom-to-be meets this bride-to-be. You can see where I'm going with this. And where I thought this movie was going, it doesn't really go there. And this is where I'm kind of getting into some spoilers. So these two characters, this groom-to-be at the bachelor party and this bride-to-be who's just on a nice friend trip, they start getting together and talking, and they have a lot in common. And the thing that, of course, they have in common is that they're both getting married. And they're both really kind of scared. And at one point in time, I thought, oh, they're going to hook up, and then this is where this film was going with. And there's a scene that I actually thought was really interesting, where the main character talks to, where the bride-to-be talks to the groom-to-be. Oh man, this is getting really confusing, because I probably should have written down the main characters' names. Bride-to-be talks to groom-to-be and says, like, well, you can come over to the place where we're staying. And I think it's very clear that I can't really tell on this. I think that's what I really like about this film, was I really couldn't tell the intentions of this. Is whether bride-to-be really wanted to hook up with this one person. And because here's the thing, when bride-to-be starts to suggest something like this, why don't you come over to our place, immediately he gets in a very high defensive mode and says, like, we're not going to do that. And I just kind of went like, oh, shoot. Well, that's kind of uncomfortable, but I can kind of tell where this... And I get the feeling like the groom-to-be really wanted to, but he was just kind of denying it and stuff like that. And he just got really angry and stuff like that. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that, the way that was shown. I have to admit, that was a pretty good scene. I mean, I said, like, hey, I didn't really laugh once in this film, but maybe I'm really not supposed to. I'm really just supposed to see this. And I'm going to get into spoilers here, the heavy spoilers, because I actually thought, now, if this film would have committed to this bit, and the bit that I'm talking about is, this is going to be one of those films with a third act breakup. These two friends, the female friends, eventually just sort of distance themselves apart for at least a few months, according to the film. Now, do they get back together? Yeah, they do. And yeah, that is a spoiler, but I told you I was heading in that territory. I actually would have preferred an ending in which they didn't. Now, it's not because I didn't like these characters and I didn't want them to be happy, but this actually happens sometimes. As adults, we tend to drift from our friends. Sometimes we don't. We have an interaction with them. We say things to them that, and we just, and we don't call back and say we're sorry or anything like that. That kind of happens. I was sort of expecting that to happen, but they did make up, and I was very satisfied with that ending. You know what? I might have to reverse this thing. Maybe I do like this film. I don't know. Shoot. Well, you've heard my rant on it, so... You know what? Go and watch it for yourself. I'll bet you'll probably like it.